So let's dive into one of the greatest and most audacious musical mysteries of the 20th century. It's a story that involves a world-famous composer, an absolutely ruthless dictator, and a symphony that was hiding a dangerous secret in plain sight.
Okay, picture this. It's 1945. The Soviet Union has just defeated Nazi Germany. The Great Patriotic War is over. The entire nation is absolutely euphoric. And the state, well, they want to commemorate this unbelievable moment with an artistic monument that will last for all time.
And who do you turn to for a job like that? You turn to your greatest living composer, Dmitri Shostakovich. The expectation was crystal clear. He was to compose a Ninth Symphony. And not just any Ninth Symphony. It had to be a work so grand, so triumphant, that it would stand right next to Beethoven's own Ninth, the legendary Ode to Joy. This was meant to be the ultimate anthem to Soviet victory.
But what Shostakovich delivered was not that at all. Instead of some colossal, heroic epic, he turned in a short, almost comically playful piece. It was light, it was bizarre, and it left the officials completely baffled. So what on earth was going on? Was it a joke, a massive failure? Or was it something way, way more clever and a lot more dangerous?
To really get why everyone was so shocked, we first have to understand the incredible pressure Shostakovich was under. You know, this wasn't just any old commission. This was basically a direct order from the state.
And what's so fascinating is that Shostakovich himself publicly stoked these flames. He talked about creating a large-scale work. He declared that victory would be the central theme. He led everyone to believe he was composing exactly the kind of monumental symphony the regime wanted.
You know, the funny thing is, the public at the premiere seemed to love its quirky energy. But the Soviet authorities? They were not amused. Not one bit. They saw it as trivial, ideologically weak, and totally inappropriate for the occasion. So the symphony was condemned pretty quickly, and by 1948, it was officially banned. This just goes to show how badly it missed the mark, or at least how badly it seemed to.
Now, to understand the kind of risk Shostakovich was running, we have to look at the incredibly strict artistic world he was living in. Because in Stalin's Soviet Union, art wasn't about self-expression. Art had a job to do.
And that job was defined by this official doctrine called socialist realism. Basically, all art was supposed to be a propaganda tool. It had to show life not as it really was, but as it should be in a perfect communist state. So everything had to be joyful, heroic, and just relentlessly optimistic. Any art that didn't fit that perfect mold was labeled degenerate.
And look at how specific these rules were. I mean, this table pretty much lays out the narrow path artists had to walk. Anything complex, dissonant, or satirical was out. Anything simple, optimistic, and lyrical was in. There was no gray area. You were either serving the state or you were an enemy of the state.
And the stakes here were terrifyingly high. Shostakovich knew this better than anyone. Years before, Stalin himself had famously walked out of his opera Lady Macbeth, and the state newspaper Pravda published this absolutely chilling condemnation. The message was unmistakable. Get in line, or you will be silenced permanently.
So, if Shostakovich knew the risks were literally life and death, why on earth did he write this bizarre symphony? Well, the answer, many scholars now believe, is that the Ninth wasn't a failure at all. It was a message in a bottle, written in a secret code.
Back in the early 1940s, as the horrors of the Holocaust were becoming known, Shostakovich was deeply affected by the suffering of the Jewish people. At the exact same time, Stalin was ramping up his own anti-Semitic campaigns inside the Soviet Union. So, Shostakovich started embedding Jewish musical themes into his work. It was his form of symbolic protest, a way to give a voice to the voiceless.
And the key to his code was a very specific musical tool, the Phrygish scale. This scale is a signature of Jewish folk music and klezmer. To a typical Russian audience, it would have sounded distinctly, well, foreign. A little off, maybe. For Shostakovich, this sound became his secret symbol for the outsider and specifically for the Jewish people.
Okay, so now that we have the key, let's go back and unlock the symphony itself. Because once you know what to listen for, the whole thing transforms from a nonsensical joke into a powerful hidden drama.
So the symphony kicks off not with a simple melody, but with what's basically a little play. One scholar, Philip Lenberg, suggests that we can hear three distinct characters interacting and clashing with each other.
And here they are. First, you get the seemingly heroic theme,
all triumphant and pompous. That's the Soviet state. Then suddenly the Jewish theme appears, using that foreign-sounding Frege scale. And finally you get this clumsy, goose-stepping military march. That's brute force.
And here's the drama. Every single time the Jewish theme shows up, that military theme reacts with more and more violence, trying to crush it. But it fails. The march gets frantic, it gets confused, and eventually it just collapses in total exhaustion. It's a musical picture of hollow, brutal power, completely failing to stamp out the human spirit.
But the symphony's true, absolutely devastating secret is hidden in the fourth movement, the Largo. This short, dark passage is really the Rosetta Stone for the whole piece. After all that frantic energy in the earlier movements, the music just grinds to a halt.
And a solo bassoon starts to play this lonely, weeping melody. As Philip Lindbergh points out, this isn't just generic sad music. It's a direct musical quote of a Jewish cantor singing the Kaddish, the prayer for the dead. Right in the heart of his supposed victory symphony, Shostakovich placed a secret funeral.
And then, just as suddenly as it began, the symphony lurches into this bizarre, almost manic finale. It's a wild, spinning dance that sounds totally out of place after that solemn prayer. But this, too, is part of the code.
The finale is built on a freylax, which is a traditional celebratory Jewish dance. But in Jewish culture, this kind of music often stands for something much deeper, the idea of laughter through tears. It's a defiant celebration in the face of suffering, like a frantic dance on the edge of a cliff. This isn't a celebration of Stalin's victory, it's a celebration of survival. So when you put all these pieces together, the shattered expectations, the coded musical language, the secret prayer, the real meaning of this symphony becomes just breathtakingly clear.
You see, Shostakovich didn't fail to write a victory symphony. He secretly wrote an anti-victory symphony. He delivered a piece of music that, on the surface, just seems silly and playful, but underneath, he smuggled in a profound and blistering critique of state violence, of tyranny, of anti-Semitism.
And if there's any doubt left, Shostakovich himself, in his own memoirs, spelled it out. His symphony wasn't just a memorial for the victims of the Nazis. It was a memorial for all victims of tyranny, and that included the millions who died under Stalin. He used the victory over one dictator to secretly condemn his own.
All of this really forces you to ask a pretty amazing question. If a work this famous could hide such a powerful secret for so long, what other truths might be waiting to be discovered, encoded in the art and music we think we know so well?